Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2, where I'm always excited to introduce the high-tech Protoss in the blue. One of the few Protoss to ever take even a single series off of Zerg. It's classic. And the other side, no, not the finisher, but a classic StarCraft 2 player himself, playing for over 10 years now. You might recognize DRG, Dong Ray Gu. Once again, a best of 3 PvZ. Yes, these players might age, but Zerg rushes never get old. Unlike begging for likes and subscribes. And Jimmy, we gotta do it. All right, it works. It's annoying. 1,257 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another series. And I'll probably do it anyways. But thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. Hopefully this top tier Protoss versus Zerg is about to make it just a little bit better. I have high hopes for this, by the way, because both these players right now are just that thin slice below the icing on the cake. They're the cake part of the cake, I guess. And I'd like to eat it too, as what I'm trying to say is the meta is much more volatile, much more dramatic, and much more messy when you get just that little bit below the Cyril versus everyone else. And DRG certainly highlights that with his commitment over the last decade to Zerglings and Banelings. Already adding a few more on here. As he started out with the 3 hats, we have the flyby, beautiful Oracle Micro, but will take the obligatory damage to the queens who resent their presence. Takes out the larvae, which are actually quite vulnerable to it, but some injects on the way by. Actually dodged it with a drone there, but at the end of the day, the oracles will be driven away. And the Zerglings are on the other side. That's actually Adept Glaives in the production tab. Something to follow this up. I wonder if this is for DRG specifically, as Blink and Charge have been the classic favorites of everyone who's non-classic recently. But the Adept Glaives are the most direct way to deal with the mass Zergling early on. And Revelation going to be used. Get a little bit of extra detection, but certainly a original strategy here. Or at least an original take on the recent Protoss versus Zerg. And he's not really making that many Adepts either. He only has 4 gates, which is enough to put together an attack. But Classic has 50 probes, and he's building 3 more at a time. He's not intending. Is this battle Adepts? Adepts almost always used to throw some shade and get out or get as much done as possible before transitioning into, you know, units that do more for less, which is most of them in the later game. But for now, he's actually... this is a mid-game... Well, we're not quite there, but a near mid-game Adept timing. DRG is adding Lings and Banes to the surprise of absolutely no one. And the Queens. Get off my creep. Oh, with the Adepts. Temporary wall with the Evolution Chambers. So, kind of limited on their options. Brenda, come back here! Oh my god! Baneling's looking for an opportunity. But no Banelings in the 3rd. DRG actually misses the mark there. The Adepts already killing a whole bunch of the drones, as well as spreading out to deal with the Banes. A stasis on the backline lets it distract some of the Zerglings, but eventually everything gets cleaned up. So let's tally it up at the end of the day. Classic has 66 probes back at home, though that number may be decreased dramatically momentarily. He's got Blink and +1. That is a very poorly positioned Immortal. He recalls it. It's already taken some hull damage and gets recalled to the outside, but the Zerglings won't be able to get it. Stalker holds the door for now. The Oracles come back. Classic did... Well, at the end of the day, it looks like his plan was to do what everybody else does with the early Adepts, which is throw them away as effectively as possible. Did he get enough done for 15 Adepts? 40-something Zerglings? I don't think the Adepts can claim credit for all of that, but it's going to be a solid from me, as clearly DRG feels pressured enough to sit back. He's got an infestation bit, roach one. He's not going to get any other damage done. But also Classic is forced onto defense, as he has to build up that production. He only has 4 gates right now, but he has double robo, of course, as climbing the tech tree is almost imperative. It's almost an addiction for him. The oracles come in very optimistically. Wow, even turns around, gets the right. Yep, that's a queen. I got playing with fire there. But hive tech, roaches in production. DRG realizing that mass zergling might not be quite enough. Vipers may be on the agenda. Adrenal glands always good. +2 melee is going to be done momentarily. DRG bounced back from the kind of drone deficit and now has a slight lead, but only recently, which means the income is only now tilted towards the Zerg player. And Classic has had plenty of time to build up his infrastructure, get that gateway count bolstered somewhat, and continue to build off of his double robo production. And now 4 Nexi. He's got 81 probes and counting. He's building more probes. It's almost a problem at this point. But as long as the army isn't maxed out and he has enough on the field, I think it's all right. And Ruptors, extended thermal lands, both players just kind of putting everything on the table now. Notably for DRG, unlike every single... This tells you his priorities. I want to point this out. Every single other Zerg, hive finishes, builds Vipers. DRG, hive finishes, adrenal glands for Zerglings. Yes, and then Vipers. But, well, Ragnarok / Shin. Clearly it is not. As DRG, grab your emotional support, Zerglings. Many of them will die. That's a sacrifice that DRG is willing to make. Especially against mass Colossi. Catches some Stalkers, but the Blink Stalker's coming forward, and the Colossi are chasing this down now. This army of Classic is nearly maxed out, and is about as anti-Zergling as you can get. Some of the queens getting caught and killed. 4 Colossi, extended thermal lance, big Zergling counterattack. The Oracle's still in position to deal with this, keeping them alive. Very important in helping to deal with counterattacks, but of course, overrunning the Nexus. How many Vipers? There are 2 Vipers, with enough energy for 2 abducts apiece. Zergling speed and adrenal glands not done yet. The Disruptors as well, possibly more of a threat, depending on the timing, than the Colossi. And now, Templar being warped in, not going to be using them for feedback, but Archons are strong enough on their own. This is kind of the calm before the non-existent storms at the moment, as both sides have built up and are maxed out. But now we're gonna fight. The Zerglings are coming back. The hatchery at half HP blinks back. Disruptor shot over the top. Force field kind of zones out the Ruptor shot, but the hatchery is dead. Opening up the Zerg. Blinding Cloud comes in. Zerglings from the back. Blinding Cloud all over anything. Governors, get over here. Yanks out a Colossus, needs to deal with the Prism. DRG's flanking Zerglings took out multiple Colossi, brought low by the ankle biters that gnawed them to pieces. And I think DRG, he may have lost the hatchery, but he certainly won the battle. Looking at the units lost, DRG killed 5,750 minerals, 3,400 gas, only lost 3,200 Zerglings, and maybe a Viper in there. 3,200 minerals of Zerglings, and like a Viper and a few roaches. So, in terms of cost and benefit, DRG comes out on top, but the Disruptor shot returns fire. The Zerglings overrunning despite the shield batteries. Almost kills his own Nexus with the Ruptor, saves the day with the Prism, but the Zergs are overrunning the field. And Ultralis to cap things off. DRG is not done. No silly lurker positioning, no brood lords to sit back and relax, no infestors. Ultralis, Zerglings, and Banelings. Which, while entertaining, a bit of a lag, but we don't pause for anyone here. Alright, Classic. Well, it's unclear which side had an issue, but I have no issue with Ultralis in the production tab. Multiple Immortals. I think he either suspects it or just wants to fill in that unit composition. Once you get past 5 or 6 disruptors, they become maybe more of a liability to your army, whether in army supply or in their actual purification numbers, than they are a danger to the enemy. Chitinous plating is done, though. DRG has +3, +2. Attack. Only attack. He just got chitinous plating. He's working on +1 armor, but it's all about that attack. And those are +3 Banes, which one-shot probes, like the +2 Banes of old. Kind of unceremoniously, but he gets 13 probes. More Zerglings coming in. Ultra's leading the charge, getting obliterated by the Immortals. But the Immortals, in turn, getting run down. Corrosive Bows, but who's flanking who? 19, 20 probes dead. The Zerglings slipping into the base. Wait, who's trapped in here with who? Shield battery overcharge. What shield battery? Oh my god! The Cracklings just ripping that Nexus to shreds, I say. The Zealots trapped him in, so they decided to remove the obstacle, which wasn't the Zealots. DRG just ripping apart the Protoss with the Zerglings and the Banelings and the Ultralists, but Classic still has a solid core to his army. This is the sort of army from DRG that if you lose one battle decisively, you're not going to be able to have another one. You will lose the game. You cannot afford to lose any fights with this Ultra Ling Bane army. You can take a mediocre fight, but if you outright lose, the critical mass of Protoss will come rolling across. But so far, it appears Classic unable to respond to the counter-attacks. He's building the Immortal Archon and filling in the charge lots. A classic bread and butter beefcake Protoss composition, but Ultras in production. How many Vipers? 2 Vipers. Are they the first 2 Vipers? One of them is. Taught the other the ropes, all right? 2 days from retirement. Unfortunately, StarCraft games last between 10 and 25 minutes on average, so optimistic. Zealots. The Zerglings find the Prism first. DRG finally maxed out. There's a carrier in production for Classic as he reaches upwards to try to escape the Zerg. Overlord speed now. The lengths that DRG will go to avoid building lurkers, broodlords. Who needs them? He's gonna try to overrun the front. The probes run away, but guess what? Here are the Banelings, here are the Ultras, and the Vipers as well. The positioning of the cannons is good to zone everything out, and honestly, not that much damage done. War Prism at the back. Zealots slicing up what they can, but the Queens, as well as even a well-positioned Spore Crawler. Whoa. The Zealots looking for something. And they drag a decent amount of attention and Zerglings back home, but the Spire will only now be built as the carrier has arrived. Tries to pat the Nexus on the back with overcharge, but far too much damage. The Ultras chew it apart. And the Zerglings continue to stream across the map. Ultras yanks out some Immortals. Blinding Cloud on the rest. The Ultras are at point-blank range, so the Immortals still find good targets. And a lot of those Ultras are dying. Yeah, well, the Immortals are quite literally designed to deal with them. So DRG ends up losing a huge amount. It didn't go particularly great for Classic. In the last minute or so, he lost 5 Archons, 3 Immortals, a Ruptor. DRG managed to lose 6 Ultras and 115 Zerglings, which are rookie numbers. I'm sure he could do better. Let's try again. More Zerglings coming in. Overrunning everything. Barrier triggered across the board on the Immortals. Blast down the... Oh, that's a bit optimistic. Recall's out, but there's nothing left to recall. And where is he going anyway? Gets a carrier out of there. A panic recall on Immortals that are dead before it completes. And DRG looks like he's going to run the field in game number 1 with one of the most Zerg games I have seen in at least a little while. His commitment to his style. Either that or he's too old to change, but I refuse to consider that. DRG being one of the few players near my age at this level. it isn't because he doesn't want to change. It's because the game should change for him. And so far, so good. There's a probe in that, you know, I choose to believe he brought the probe. Well, I don't think the probe is here for a base trade. Yanks him in, knocks him down. With the corruptors on the field, Classic realizes it's time to tap it out. DRG's mass Zergling. And yes, I'm giving the Zerglings the vast majority of the credit. The Ultras were also there, but the Ultras, those are just thumbnail clickbait, okay? The Zerglings are the real heroes. Just harder to get a high-resolution image of them because they're not small, they're just smaller. I mean, everything's small compared to an Ultraless or your mother. So at the end of the day, DRG with the Zerglings is able to run the field. Classic with that kind of half-hearted depth push. I'm not in love with it, all right? I don't even like it that much, believe it or not. So going into game 2, we'll see if there's something a bit more inspired than just kind of, I don't know, adepts. It did feel like one of those pull that card out at the beginning of the series kind of builds that Protoss are known for. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you just win the game with the adepts. All right? We all remember Neeb. I mean, there was a little more detail to it, but the general... The spawning pool on the way. Probe keeping a close eye. Don't know what they're putting in the water there. Don't know if it's water at all. This does not require further debate. Probe stole some minerals, which means it can't show its face in these parts again. The Zerglings will hunt it down. Right now, Classic trying to check how many Zerglings are being built, as well as trying to get info on whether there's a third, which can kind of give away whether or not there's going to be a big Zergling attack coming in. Now, doubtful DRG would give that information away, even if he was building more lings, but worth a shot. And the Zerglings aren't quite quick enough until they get the metabolic boost in order to run down the probe. Much to their dismay. Adept. Into the main. Wait, yeah. Gets tucked into those minerals. Actually fighting the Zerglings, playing ring around the refinery. Well, gas are here. And get off my... Well, that worked pretty well. And the Zerglings will finish off the Adept Oracle on the way. Gonna hang out. Well, we actually used it to kill the Overlord. There's a couple Zerglings coming across. Time for the first mini game, which is protect the, well, the OV feeling abandoned. There are some Zerglings. He could maybe hunt it down, but Overlord dies and floats up as one does here on Oceanborn. Very quick third. Okay, not very quick. A reasonably quick third on the faster side of things. Not committing to any other tech before the third. Only getting 2 oracles and not even warping in from the gateways. That's what makes it quick. If it was even more quick, it would be before like a second oracle. Possibly before like you cut probes just to make sure you get it like 36. Not what DRG is there. Classic. But quick third. Alright. Adept taken out. The Zerglings. Okay, this is getting surprisingly dangerous. Of course, it's the Zerglings. Another Oracle comes out. The first 2 come back. DRG a bit supply blocked. Classic also supply blocked, but he had to cancel a pylon. DRG was very focused on that Zergling micro. Not an ideal time to be supply blocked, but then again, there really isn't one, so that will slow down the follow-up here a bit. actually building a few amnesia lords as well, which is when you get supply blocked, you build a couple overlords, and then like 5 seconds before they finish, you're like, oh no, I'm supply blocked, and you build a couple more overlords. We've all been there. Oh, that oracle. Blink and +1. A bit more of a classic tactic indeed. Falling back to it in game 2. Definitely a more stable option. The Adept Glaives have the potential to just win the game or get you into a decisive advantage. But they're also easier to counter and require more commitment. So higher risk for higher reward. Whereas the Blink and +1 is a bit more of a middle ground. The Stalkers give you just that kind of built-in anti-roach and just general anti-unit. Like, Blink Stalkers aren't particularly great against anything, but they're not horrible against anything. So, yeah, that made sense. All right, just, you got the idea. The Adepts are dead. He's gonna rush carriers because... But DRG... There's no way that's not for Mutas. Though, I'm not sure what the choice will be if he manages to scout the carriers. As Mutalisks are okay against carriers, but if they have ranged Phoenixes, for example, that's kind of the hardest of counters. So, here we go. The Blink Stalkers out on the map. The Zerglings get into the base, making things incredibly awkward. He's gonna mineral walk through. The Blink Stalker's gonna try to get something done. How many times? We represent the HOA, the Hatchery Owners Association. And please, please, no trespassing. It's nothing against you, Protoss. It's just Zerg only. Karen, you can't say that. They can't talk back. They don't have mouths. That's not the point. Sorry. Spire is nearly done. Oh, Winkstalker's caught. Yeah, the others have it on cooldown. Gonna lose. God, DRG just finds those pickoffs. And again, you put enough Zerglings on the field, you're bound to find something. Either in a quick GG for yourself, or some units of theirs. 11 Mutalisks on the way, but 2 carriers. And it's not so much the 2 carriers, it's the fact there's Blink and a Fleet Beacon already done. That makes these Mutas... DRG is like playing out of a time capsule. He's like, so, core units. Mutas, Zerglings, Banelings. Late game, more Zerglings. Maybe Ultralisks. I don't know. And here we go. The Zerglings looking for a surround, not finding, but the Mutas into the natural. The carriers will have to be revealed. There might not be enough. Well, with the Stalkers, I think, and the Interceptor count has built up 7 probes down. Is that enough to matter? It's pretty good. And now with the Fleet Beacon done, is DRG, he's just gonna keep building. Mutas, already. Pulse Crystals, Phoenix range on the way. But DRG is going to try to take advantage of this situation as quick as possible. Targeting down the Oracles. The Zerglings underneath covering for the Stalkers. The Zerglings helping out a lot against these Stalkers. They will just be ripped apart here. And now here come the Phoenixes. Are they too little too late, or is DRG going to be driven back? The Nexus isn't dead yet, needs to keep those alive. Shield battery overcharged. The carriers are still going to work. We got some Corruptors on the way to deal with the Phoenixes directly here. Phoenix range is almost done. Really does not want to lose those, but he's trying to use every second he has because he knows it's likely that DRG will go for the Corruptors. He's going to stick on that Spire tech. +1 air will be done for both sides. DRG is going to have it a little bit quicker, but that air upgrade is going to be absolutely critical to deal with the Corruptors, with the Phoenixes, as cutting through the armor is required. DRG mining gas from 4 bases here. 1300 gas a minute. working on the rocks. +2 weapons on the ground completed for Classic. +1 air about to be done. We got 2-1 already, melee and air for DRG, who's trying to get past that Zealot. A few more to back it up. Working his way through. 4th base again. Phoenix is completely out of position. And this Nexus will be taken down. The Zerglings break into the main. And DRG is just overrunning here. The only saving grace for Classic is that DRG forgot Hive Tech exists. He's maxed out. He has 22 mutas and 8 corruptors and no infestation pit. So, if by some minor miracle, I'm not going to call it a miracle, minor miracle, Classic is able to hold on here, eventually the Phoenix count should be enough to deal... well, dodging back, trying to use the overcharge for all it's worth, doesn't kill that last carrier. The Phoenix is trading here. The Stalker's underneath providing some covering fire. Picks off a couple more Corruptors. The Mutas head out in front, but they're going to be cut to pieces by the Phoenixes. Absolutely sliced out of the sky. And DRG still has not discovered the event. He will continue making mutas. And Classic still has no room for error. Despite the Phoenixes being able to kite the mutas to the ends of the earth, there are pretty finite bounds on the ends of the earth here in StarCraft 2 maps. You could literally pin them up against the edge of the map eventually. And of course the Corruptors are a direct danger. But Classic has maintained his probe count. A Hydra Den is on the way, but still very conspicuously for DRG, no infestation pit. The Phoenix is around again. Shield battery overcharge is up. Loses both carriers, but the carriers were kind of placeholders there. And DRG gets in with the Zerglings. He's on top. What is he recalling? Some Zealots. And that will be enough to hold the line for now. DRG just built 80 more Zerglings, which technically you can lift Zerglings with Phoenixes, but it feels wrong. Like, it feels like a waste of your talents. Like using your 4080 GPU in order to watch YouTube videos. Like and subscribe. It's not even 4K, Winter. I can't even see all the pixels. You think StarCraft is in 4K? This game is almost as old as your children. More Zealots warped in. The Zerglings into the main. Anyone who has videos in 4K is just upscaling it. Moving on. Banelings. DRG still, it's like a religious exemption to Hive Tech here. The Lord of the Lair. The Lord of the Lings. That one was right there. We missed it. Huh. New nickname, by the way, I think. No. No Baneling speed? Oh, yeah, he got that. He took so long to get... There's the infestation pit as the most dramatic afterthought. It is actually crazy to me that it took that long. If he's going to go for Hive, only so incredibly begrudgingly. Now Classic has Archons. Baneling speed is done. Flyer attack and Carapace are about to complete, but they're not quite there yet. On the backline. Backline overcharges well in the shield battery, but the Banelings are rolling in. The Mutas are being kited back. The Hydras are doing their best. New carriers have showed up to the party here. But DRG is doing terrible, terrible damage to the Protoss. And... well, I guess you don't need a Hive where he's going here today. Huh. When you have enough mutas, you could just run the table. And that brings us to game number 3. Classic in a tough position here. As DRG just seems to make lings and lisks, and more importantly, he makes it work. As Classic keeps trying to climb the tech tree and getting dragged back down to the baseline. But we go into Alcyone. And there's a forge in product. Oh my. So this seems to be almost standard now on this map. Is the Zerg takes the gold and the Protoss takes offense to that. So, I've seen multiple responses here from both sides. Do you try to defend it? Like, that's a good positioning for the cannon there. This shouldn't be the be-all, end-all, because DRG is not tied to this bait. He actually cancels. So do you cancel the cannon? That's the question. He's going to come back. He cancels the cannon. Queen is on the way. A zealot will come strolling in. Huh. The zealot just gonna kind of hang out here. I guess the spawning pool was so late. This is definitely the least dramatic response to it from either side that I've seen. DRG just gives up on the idea, and Classic says, all right, fine, and cancels his cannon. He does still have that forge. So, that can be a good thing, though it did delay his Nexus. Throws some shade. Gonna get a continued scout around, though he already scouted the gas. He knows Zergling speed is on the way. Stargate. So, falling back to it, we'll see if he incorporates that forge. Sometimes players will... Ooh, it's a Void Ray. Sometimes players will just forget in these sort of games that they built a tech building like that. Twilight Council's a pretty notorious, or a Dark Shrine, for example, or an Armory for Terran, where you just kind of had such a weird early game, you go back to default, which is building another of the same tech building. But the Void Ray is a conspicuous choice, because the Void Ray clearly is there to deny scouting. The Void Ray is just not nearly as good as the Oracle at scouting itself. At defense, it doesn't have the damage, but it can kill Overlords, and that is its most important skill here, I believe, as time goes on. Oracle on the way behind. I think it's very likely we'll see a Twilight in the main. Yeah, that Overlord trying to glide its way away. Not gonna happen. There's the Twilight. But what flavor of sneaky Protoss is it going to be? Charge and +1, which is a bit cliche, but that doesn't make it less effective. There's the +1. A Robo. Adding on the gates. A third base for show. Classic is not building any additional probes. Does he pull off of gas too? Not quite, but there's the charge. There's the +1. It's going to be a full swell of gateways. Full spread here. 8 gate charge with a Robo, and he's I guess he does have the probe count for this, but clearly trying to make it look like a big economical play. And DRG has 60 drones and counting. Hook, line, and sinker here. He's taking the bait. He has a grand total of 8 Zerglings. He's building 13 drones at a time. That is not going to be... That is not the ideal counter to mass charge lot with +1. Sees the chrono. Will he start producing? He's actually a bit... He's gonna be supply blocked. He only has one Overlord on the way. Now adding more, so even now he's only gonna be able to build a few roaches. Retaking that gold base. If he even wants to do that. 5 roaches on the way. There's a proxy pylon and a war prism, just in case the pylon doesn't get the job done. I like this wombo combo here. Charge is about to complete. +1 on the way. Roaches are in production, but I think, yeah, now is not the time to wait. Even though +1 isn't done, every moment makes it a little bit easier for DRG to defend. Only now are the first roaches popping out. The Warp Prism in the main, warping in a cinematic of Zealots. And with those upgrades, they are an existential threat to pretty much everything the Zerg has early on in high enough number. The roaches are not the reasonably hard counter they usually are against the upgraded Zealots. Easily slicing through. And can warp in yet another round, just going straight for the lair. Meanwhile, roaches surrounding the Zealots. He's just gonna try to kill the lair. Oh no, he's under a spore! Classic! Oh, if he loses the Warp Prism to a spore. It's so many charge lots. He's just flooding charge lots in. Zealotlings here. Will there be a recall? Oh, that was a sad one. There's been some sad recalls in this series. Oh my god. Are there any queens left? There are 2. But not anywhere nearby. The charge lots are overrunning. But the roach count is high enough. He finished roach speed, though he did lose the lair. Behind this classic has been building probes. He still has that void ray, which could be very important here, as the counter attack is on the way. Actually mined out the entire mineral wall. Rare you see that done. The mass charge lot didn't follow up with any upgrades here. Now we got Blink in production. DRG, it looked bad, but besides the lair dying, which is a pretty big asterisk, it's kind of superficial, as roaches are still the counter on the ground to what Classic is doing. So he's gonna get another cancel on the gold base, and Classic himself is taking a 4th. But I don't think it did the critical damage that he may have wanted it to do. DRG, though, clearly a bit traumatized. So traumatized, he actually rediscovered Infestation Pit tech before the 15-minute mark. Like, what about Game 1? Well, Game 1, he clearly wanted Zerglings and Ultras, which require those hive tech upgrades. Also, it's just random at the start of a game whether DRG will remember hive tech. You play Zerg long enough, you start forgetting things. It's all the neural parasites. Yeah. Well, Classic left with mass gateway units. An odd situation for him. He's adding in Immortals. +2 on the way. Warp Prism. And more Stalkers. DRG adds the Hydroden and a Hive. So proud. So proud of him. Something. Oh, finally takes out the proxy pylon. A chunk of charge lots, which is a technical term. Not a metric chunk, though. Up to the north side. Charges up the Void Ray. Meanwhile, the Warp Prism in the main. But nothing at the natural to stop the charge lots. That is the angle he didn't account for. And the Blink Stalkers are coming in as well. The charge lots into the natural. The Warp Prism trying to come into the main. The spores are going to burrow. But just a handful of Zealots will get through. Roach Hydra coming back. Kind of jammed up those Zealots. And not finding that much here. But behind it, another Robo +2. More Immortals in production. But DRG now has the gold base, which means he can support even with less workers. And he doesn't have particularly many less workers either. Lurkers on the way with seismic spines. Vipers in production. Classic with Stalker Immortal out here. So if those lurkers are completed, definitely juicy targets for them. But the Stalker Immortal quite good against just mass roaches. Especially with +2 about to complete. Somehow that Warp Prism has survived this long, despite only having 8 HP left over. We'll see how much longer that can continue to be true. But a few lurkers are finally burrowed. There's one Oracle on the field, going to be very important for detection. Classic sees the lurkers, immediately starts a fleet beacon and a Stargate. You can definitely see the angle he wants to take against him. Overseer. Oh, Immortal gets caught. Another Immortal gets caught. He tries to blunk forward. He is successful, but the spray out of the corrosive biles does return fire somewhat. Overseer. Void Ray finally finds purpose in life again. More Stargates on the way. Did he spot the fleet beacon? I don't believe he did. A bit busy on the other side. Creep tumors under attack and all that. Vipers have energy now. Is there a Templar Archives? No. Ranged lurkers. Making life difficult here. Just blinking past them. Looking for an angle. Gonna try to catch the lurkers while they're burrowing. And, oh... doesn't even get one, and now more lurkers are on the way up. Blinding Cloud potential. Another recall. I don't know, Kev. He gets out with maybe 3 out of 4 or 5 immortals. Loses 2. And now that means his army is lacking in immortals, which means, of course, it can die easily. The lurkers, immortals coming in from the north side, trying to get involved in the fight. The Vipers help him out. And, well, this fight coming apart from either side for Classic as DRG drives lurker spines through the center. A devastating fight. Another one. And Classic just not really... he's just not putting it together. DRG just, with these really, even now with this Roach Hydra Viper and some lurkers mixed in. An older school style, but it certainly checks out. As with no Templar or Stargate units to deal with the Vipers, they just have a field day, finding and harpooning immortals, bringing them into the fray. Classic with a counterattack from the Stalkers. The lurkers find an exposed base, well, the Roach Hydra does as well. Recall certainly on cooldown. The carriers have arrived, but this is not a... He's trying to run a carrier economy on a rowboat budget right now, and it's not... He may kill the Hydras. This is one carrier. But here comes when the Zerglings are back. They wanted to get a piece of the action before this was all said and done. The Zerglings, the real heroes of this series. I stand by it. And the lurkers are just picking it apart. It looks like it's gonna be a clean sweep for Dong Rei-gu. The Lord of the Lings has returned with 1 unit and some others occasionally to rule them all. But wow, those interceptors way out there. Classic. Well, it's match point, so. But how do I say? He's super dead. Like, he's really super dead. The Hydra stutter stepping out in the open field. All right. DRG putting 2 G's into the chat via his opponent. Okay, that wasn't clever. Jimmy, edit that in post. We got to do GG. Okay, no, that was too much. DRG takes it home. That's a good. That was good. That was a good tone. But at the end of the day, the Zerglings are too much. The Hydras are too strong, and the Vipers, when they do show up, they get the job done. DRG with that Lair Tech Zerg running the table on Classic. And I gotta say, even though it's a clean sweep, I kind of found it entertaining to watch. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, it made your day just a little bit better. And If you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon. But I hear liking and subscribing. Still free for now. Make sure to check out the second channel. Links in the description. Winter Gaming TV for streams and more content. And you want to waste more of your day? Well, otherwise, thank you for watching. Check out Recommended for the next cast. It helps out a lot. And I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill.